many of you got your rest last night?
See if I'm on. Here I am. How many of you are getting your rest every night? Rest is a big deal these days. The data says that we are not getting enough rest as a people. And some of us, that's more true than others. The CDC tells us that we need 7 hours of sleep every night. Now, how many of you does that actually happen for? The numbers right now, I think it's like 40% are not getting their 7 hours of sleep. That means 60% of us are getting it, which seems good. But then when you think about it, 50 to 75 years ago, the number of people not getting 7 hours of sleep was 15%. So it's skyrocketed 2 or 3 times what it used to be. People not getting the rest they need. But rest goes beyond sleep. Rest is a lifestyle. Rest is an internal disposition. I mean, how many of you know or feel restless? It goes beyond simply having enough sleep. And when I think about rest, I think about the relationship of kids to parents, children to moms and dads, and the faith and the confidence that they have in their parents. I remember when I was growing up, my dad used to take us every once in a while. He used to take the family to the lake. It was called Houston Woods. It's about an hour outside of the Dayton area, hour and a half near there. It's a small lake. If you scope in, you really got to scope down to see it. But when we were kids, we thought it was a big lake. And every once in a while, he'd rent a boat, and we'd go out, and we'd enjoy that thing. I remember thinking at the time, well, it's gonna be okay. This must be safe. Dad knows what he's doing. He knows boats. And so he would take us out in the boat, and we had total confidence that we would get back to shore, that we were totally safe. There were other times in which I fully remember falling asleep. How many of you did this when you were going? Falling asleep on the hump, the back floor, that drive shaft transmission tunnel that was nice and warm. All right? Total confidence, total faith that Dad would get us where we were going. And he did. I'm here. Right? That all changes. Along the way in life, there's this guy. He shows up at our door, knocking on our door. His name is more information. And life goes to crap. All of a sudden, chaos. All of a sudden, there is a little bit of unsettledness, and over time, that becomes restlessness. More information tells us that my dad was more of a farmer than he was a boatsman. More information tells me, you know what? It's not all that safe to be on the floor sleeping away with no seatbelt. More information. And now we're bombarded with all of this information. The acceleration of our technology has increased our anxiety. And now with COVID, those numbers about sleep have skyrocketed. People report they're getting even less sleep now than they were before COVID hit. Is it any wonder then that the numbers concerning anxiety and depression over the last 6 months have gone through the roof? We are a people without rest. So the image that I want us to remember, we're beginning a challenge today, and Tuesday is day number 1. We're beginning the Being Challenge. And this is about instilling into our lives habits that we have learned from Jesus. We're taking a look at 5 habits that Jesus had. But it's going to be very easy for us to come into this challenge and treat it as though, or even, we don't even have to cognizantly do this, all of a sudden for us, it's like another New Year's resolution. We are hoping to better our lives, become better people through this. That's not a bad thing. But if we're not careful, it simply becomes one more thing that we've added to our lives in order to be better. we simply lump it into the rest of our busyness. So we carve out an hour on Wednesday, or we carve out a little bit of time to go through the workbook. And pretty soon, it's just one more thing that we are doing. And if we're not careful, then that simply adds to burden, adds to anxiety, and we don't even realize it. So I thought this morning that it would be good for us to ingrain in ourselves an image of what Jesus says and what Jesus puts forth when he himself is talking about what it means to be like him and what it means to become him. An enduring image that sits underneath, behind, and inside this call to rest that Mike talked about a few moments ago. So we're going to talk about Jesus and his relationship to his Father. Now, Jesus is talking about rest. We come to Matthew 11, and he's having a discussion with people who are weary and burdened. He's talking to a crowd. Some not very nice things, if we were to read back up into chapter 11, some not very nice things have been said about Jesus, and not very nice things have been said about them, the crowd. So Jesus says this to them at the end of their discussion. He says this to a crowd that is gathered around him. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The reality for most of the people around him that day is that they are weary and they are burdened. They have been enslaved by a religious system that it's the epitome of a beatdown. They have been told that if they want to make God happy, they just need a list of do's and don'ts. They've been told that they need to be better people. They've been told that they need to make their morals a little better. They need better morals that come from listening to their shepherds, who weigh them down with things that they need to be doing in order to make everything right with God, in order to keep God happy with them. That is a severe yoke. These people, they need better morals because we find out the accusations, they're working for the loan sharks. They're working for the loan sharks. They're leaning on the bottle. Some of them are notorious women in town. Even Jesus himself is being hammered by the religious community as one who is a glutton and drunkard. He's accused of being one of them. And oh, by the way, he hangs out with them. We know he's a drunkard. We know he's a glutton because that's who he's hanging with. He hangs with sinners. That's his crown. He is a loser hanging with losers. And what do losers need to hear from the one who's being called the loser? You see, to those who don't stand a chance, those who don't stand a chance of being the best parent, those who don't stand a chance of having them and their family show up on the front cover of RGV Life magazine. They struggle with life. They're being told, if you only try harder, it wouldn't be this way for you, and they know better. Jesus says, come to me, all of you that have been trying harder, and I will give you rest. Come to me, all of you who are weak and burdened. Take my yoke, not the yoke that you are being given. Take my yoke. Learn from me. The wisdom comes from God, not them. You will find rest. Rest that has gone missing from life. Because life is about trying and doing. and you find it doesn't work for you. A pastor by the name of Eugene Peterson took Christ's words and he paraphrased it this way, and I think this is the essence of what Jesus is saying. Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me. Work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unenforced or the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Unforced rhythms of grace. That is what Jesus is promising, and that is what he delivers, not just to this crowd, but to us. And the fascinating thing about this promise, the absolutely fascinating about this promise is that image that I talked about. Because he says this on a back end of a prayer. And in that prayer, we can see the kind of relationship that Jesus has with his Father. Look at what Jesus says just before he turns to this crowd. I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you've hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, because this was your good pleasure. All things have been entrusted to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father. No one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son desires to reveal him. Jesus offers rest to the crowd, offers rest to those who are burnt out on religion, burnt out on life, burnt out on trying harder. He offers rest. Why? Because he has rest with his Father. And now he is offering the same rest that Jesus has with his Father, he is offering to this crowd. All things have been entrusted to me by my Father. What all things? All things that pertain to this rest. Forgiveness, life, grace, mercy, peace, salvation. All things pertaining to the meaning of life and the purpose of life. All things pertaining to all those things that give you anxiety and discomfort and restlessness. All things for those who find that life hasn't worked out the way they wanted it to and it causes them stress. Those kinds of all things have been entrusted to the Son by the Father. And so the Son rests in the Father, and interestingly enough, the Father rests in the Son. The Father leads the Son wherever he goes, and the Son follows the Father wherever he is leading. The Son has perfect confidence and perfect trust and perfect rest in his Father. And now he stands with all of life's losers, and he says, the rest that I have with my Father is the rest you find with me. I offer it to you. I deliver it to you. So what the Son has with the Father is exactly what a crowd who is absolutely done with religion and done with trying harder is exactly what they need to hear. They're done with virtue. They're done with morality. They know better. We're simply sinners, and all we want is rest. Divine rest. Come to me, those of you who are tired and weary of the performance wheel, and I will give you rest. Come to me, those of you who are trying to be the greatest parent of all time, and I will give you rest. Come to me who spend your time trying to atone for the stuff that you've done. And you can't seem to make it fit. You can't seem to make it right. Come to me. I will give you rest. That's the offer. And the offer is because the man standing there among the losers, who himself is being called a loser, is in perfect confidence and in perfect trust with his Father. And he doesn't keep it to himself. He simply wheels around, and he then offers that same rest to the people with him. Come to me, and you will find all the rest you need, beyond your wildest expectations. You want to know why we call this, even this, a sanctuary? And it is. You understand that right now, in this moment, we're not meeting at the community center right now. We're meeting in a sanctuary. You know why that is? Because week in and week out, Jesus shows up and he gives us rest here. That's what happens in a sanctuary. This is an oasis. Coming in from the chaos, coming in from our COVID world, coming in from a world that is upset with race relations and all the noise and all the disappointment. We come here, this space right here is a space of rest. Christ offers us rest in this oasis from that. And what's interesting, we keep talking about paying it forward. The rest that we find here then, the rest that we experience here when we come into this sanctuary, our marching orders are then to turn around and then take this rest to Los Fresnos. Take this rest to people that don't know rest, because they themselves are living the same world we are. If we can't make it fit, if I can't make it fit, if I'm experiencing anxiety, if I'm experiencing chaos, I know they are, because I'm at the bottom end of that pole. So the rest that I find here, I know, is the rest that they need. And so we become people of rest. So this is where the being challenge starts. It starts here with us reminding ourselves of our relationship to Jesus and his relationship to the Father, reminding ourselves of whose we are. Learning from Jesus, the unforced rhythms of grace that becomes a way of life. Jesus gives us rest and he says, learn from me. And so that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. We're going to learn from Jesus as we experience his rest. We're going to learn from Jesus 5 habits. Again, these 5 habits going back to this relationship with his Father, this image we need to keep in front of us, because as we teach ourselves these habits, we remind ourselves that as we read the Gospels, and when I say the Gospels, those are those first 4 letters that we find in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. What is Jesus doing in relationship to his Father? What does that relationship look like? Well, here's 5 habits that are part of that. Life-changing for us if we begin to make these our own. Jesus spent his life committing to community, studying Scripture, prioritizing prayer, seeking solitude, and choosing church. So we're going to keep it simple. Every single one of those begins in the relationship that Jesus has with his Father, a Father in whom he has perfect confidence and rest. So as we begin to implement these and make these part of our own, this becomes part of our rest. You see, this isn't simply then another list of do's. This doesn't become part of our treadmill. This doesn't become part of that performance wheel that we're on. It is part of our experience of rest, because we know that this is part of how Jesus is resting in his Father. So over the next 40 days, as we get involved with our small groups online, as we take the workbook and we start to do them, and oh, by the way, you know what? Doing the workbook Not being on the performance wheel is, if you miss a day, oh, okay. That's fine. No reason for anxiety. You know why? Because Jesus has you. This is all about rest in Him, just learning from Him. If I go 40 days and I simply learn one new thing, it's worth it. It can't be a burden. San Antonio pastor Max Lucado is helpful in helping us think about what this looks like. And again, he's talking about the child's relationship to the Father. And this is how we will keep this exercise over the next 40 days from simply being another New Year's resolution. It's simply a matter of holding on to Jesus' hand, the way that Jesus holds on to the hand of His Father. Here's what Pastor Lucado says in Jesus, the God Who Knows Your Name. We banter about pledges to change the world, make a difference for Christ, lead people to the Lord. Yet, these are byproducts of the Christ-focused life. Our goal is not to bear fruit. Our goal is to stay attached to Jesus. Maybe this image will help, and here's where you see we're going with this. This is what Max says. When a father leads his 4-year-old son down a crowded street, he takes him by the hand and he says, "Hold on to me." He doesn't say, "Memorize the map," or "Take your chances dodging the traffic," or "Hey, let's see if you can find your way home." The good father gives the child one responsibility: hold on to my hand. And God does the same with us. Don't load yourself down with lists. Don't enhance your anxiety with the fear of not fulfilling them. Your goal is not to know every detail of the future. Your goal, one goal. You had one job, right? Your goal is to hold on to the hand of the one who does and to never, ever let go. That's the image. Us holding on to Jesus' hand. And you do that. Wow. Something going on there. You do that. You hold on to Jesus' hand. You know what you're going to find? That Jesus' hand never lets go of yours. Ever. Ever. This is what it means to rest. You hold on to Jesus' hands and He holds it back. That's the easy yoke. That's what it means to rest. Us holding Jesus' hand and then Him holding us forever. That's rest. And that's what we remind ourselves as we begin a 40-day being challenge. Let's pray.